It's just one of the many things that we're going to be watching here today, including what's happening south of the border. Let's bring it to a municipal level. Joining us now for his weekly check-in, Mayor John Tory. How are you, Mayor?
Good morning, Mel. I'm fine. How are you?
A lot to discuss. Let's start south of the border. Obviously, you've been watching very closely as well. I want to get your take and your thoughts on where things are going and potentially heading.
Well, sometimes I think it mystifies us because we run a kind of paper ballot election up here, and things seem to get counted in one night. It's a smaller country, obviously, but we have, the same numbers of people, relatively speaking, living in each constituency. But they're going to have to go through what they have to go through. Let's remember, it's a very unusual election because of the pandemic and all the precautions they went to encourage people to vote by these mailed ballots. And the mailed ballots apparently are in 2 envelopes, and they have to be opened and verified, and on it goes. But the important thing is that democracy is going to work. I always say that people are never wrong. Whatever choice they make is never wrong because that's their choice. And so, I think what we should focus on is the fact that, the United States is our best friend. The United States is our best and biggest customer by far. There's so many jobs that depend in this city, for example, on American investors and American people we do business with. And we should just hope that things go well for them because, their stability and their success is our success. And that's just not even one bit of an exaggeration. It's just the truth.
We are looking ahead as well, Mayor, to what's happening with the budget to be tabled today. What are you looking for when it comes to the City of Toronto?
Well, I'm looking mainly for continued help. I mean, the province has been helpful to the city and to other cities during the course of the pandemic, and we need that help to continue. They've had what they call a restart and recovery plan, which has helped us, for example, to make up for the fact we lost hundreds of millions of dollars of transit revenue. We kept the system going, but we didn't have the revenue from people who weren't riding and therefore not paying fares. And so they helped us with that for 2020. There's a bit more money to come for 2020. We need confirmation of that, and that may come today. But then, just as importantly, we need to know that they're going to be there for us in 2021 because, we are not expecting, nor do the people out there, I think, watching BT, expect that things are going to return to normal. I think people understand this pandemic and the after effects of it will continue for some time into 2021, even if there is a vaccine. So I would like to hear that we're going to get continued support for recovery and restart. I'd like to hear that we're going to get some help for supportive housing because really the pandemic has laid bare the fact there are so many people who are struggling out there with issues and who just don't need a place to live, which we're trying to find for them, but they need, when they get to that place to live, some extra support. For example, if they have mental health issues or things like that. So I'm hoping those things are there, but that they really just stand beside cities who are delivering so many of the services on things like contact tracing and testing, maybe some improved resources for testing, because that has not been an overall success story. So those are the kinds of things I'll be looking for. They've already said there'll be no tax increases, which is a good story.
Definitely a good story. But as you mentioned there, parts of our city disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Let's talk about what's happening where a lot of Torontonians are sort of circling that November 14th into their calendar. A lot of businesses are indeed. So gyms, restaurants, whatnot, to be able to dine indoors again. Though Dr. Eileen de Villa in your conference yesterday was saying, yeah, that's what we're aiming for. But there's a possibility things could change should we see a shift in some of our data and some of the numbers. Do you anticipate that we will be able to do the November 14th date, or do you think, or is it too early to tell if something might change?
Well, let's start with the fact that the November 14th date is a date that the province has set for their orders to be changed so that to allow indoor dining and so forth. And we asked for some extra time because we felt the Toronto situation was different. It was a bit more complicated and frankly, that we needed more time for the virus to hopefully, be contained and also for us to get ready when we have like 8,000 restaurants to make sure we familiarize with all the rules and so on. And so that is the date. The province has set that date. We're striving to get ready safely. But I've always said I underline the word safely 5 times because our objective has been throughout to make sure if we're going to reopen, which we think we should, try to do, but cautiously, that it be done safely for sure, and that it be done with a view to continuing to stay open, only because for business, if you want to look at that side of it, it is incredibly disruptive to be opening and then closing and then opening and then closing. And so I think that the regime that's going to be put in place, which places some more restrictions on places like restaurants and gyms, is entirely reasonable, especially when you compare it to things that are in place in other cities around the world. There are no cities that have no restrictions. Basically, there are very few. So we're going to be striving to get done for that November 14th date. That's the objective. But, you could say of any date, any time, that depending on the conditions that are outstanding in the city at a given moment, that I could get advice from the medical officer of health, which I obviously have to sit down and take very seriously, to do something else. But our plan is November 14th. subject to the new rules, to make sure we communicate those rules, that people are very clear on what they are, the people who run restaurants, and that the public are clear on what they are. So, you're not going to go out to dinner with 9 people expecting all to sit at the same table, because that's not within the rules. So we're going to work very hard at this, and we're going to step up our efforts on contact tracing so that we can, even do a better job at that, given the demands that are placed on the city at this point in time.
Okay, a lot to digest there. Mayor Tory, you, as always, thank you for your time this week, but you have agreed to stick around because Dina wants to have a little bit of fun. Yes? Thumbs up?
Yeah, sure, of course. How could I say no to